with this. So let me share a little bit about what we're doing here today. And so for the last 10 weeks or so, we've been running the initial cohort of the Becoming Forever Employable program with the four gentlemen that you see on the screen with you here today. With me today. We've been spending 10 weeks really thinking through understanding what problem we solve for the people that we serve professionally, how we articulate that in a way that is unique enough to help us stand out in a crowded field, but broad enough to attract an audience towards us in an ongoing basis and really shift the flow of opportunities. So really, if you think about kind of a traditional job search, you'll see, the general way that a traditional, it doesn't matter if you're self-employed, it doesn't matter if you work in-house, it doesn't matter if you're starting your own business, if you're trying to get more work, whether it's more clients or another job or a promotion, the way it generally works is it's a push model. You push yourself out into the marketplace, and then you kind of hope that somebody selects you and you give up control of that process. What we've been trying to do for the last 10 weeks is really shift that conversation 180 degrees and create this pull momentum for the folks that you see with you here today. The idea being that they start to stand out in a crowd where their expertise shines, and they start to attract more and more opportunities towards them. Now that's an ongoing process of experimentation, testing, and learning, and we've spent the last 10 weeks doing that. And so today, what I've asked each one of these guys to do is to share their story with you and kind of give you a sense of what that journey looked like, what they learned along the way, and what they'll be doing as they move forward and kind of beyond the cohort in the coming weeks. And so I'm going to give each of these guys a chance to share their story. If you have any questions for them at all, or any questions for me at all, please use the Q&A panel in the Zoom webinar. That'll help me kind of keep track of all the questions. If you have any comments, of course, you can put them in the chat as well. And then we'll have an opportunity to ask questions for each individual after they finish their presentation. And then, of course, at the end, if you've got any follow-up questions at all, we'll be happy to take that as well. And we'll move to the Q&A once everyone's had a chance to, kind of generic Q&A once everyone's had a chance to present. And so with that, I'd love to get started and get moving. And so the first presenter up is John Bowie. John is going to tell you a bit about himself and his 10-week journey. So John, please take it away.
Thank you, Jeff. Let me share my screen here. Can you see that okay? Let me get presentation mode here. Okay. So thanks for joining, everyone. I'm John Bowie. I have recently started a laboratory for investigating user experience methods and techniques called Colorado Design Labs. And what I'd like to do today is share with you 10 lessons that I've learned over the last 10 weeks that are related to what Jeff was just talking about there. So let's get into it. First lesson I learned was that you need to reflect on where you've been and what you love to do and what you're good at, what the needs of the world are, as well as what someone is willing to pay you for if you're going to be running a company and actually relying on this for income. Now, in my career, I've always worked internally, in-house at companies. I worked initially for HP, and then I went to General Electric, United Health Group, Deloitte, finally at Admentum. I also did some individual consulting. I formed a company several decades ago called TCE Labs, Total Customer Experience Labs, and I conducted some workshops there. And in the course of doing that, I got the opportunity to work with some other companies like Microsoft and Intuit. So you reflect on all that you've done. You decide what it is that you really love to do. In my case, I love to teach about experience design. I love to write. I've written books and I intend to write more. What you're good at, I think I'm pretty good at both of those things. The world needs it because the world can always use more simplicity, especially in the technologies that they use every day. And then my goal is, after looking around the internet and seeing how other people have monetize this type of thing of conducting training sessions and writing books. I believe that what I'm trying to accomplish is at the intersection of all four of those things. Second lesson that we worked on in the Becoming Forever Employable workshop was figuring out exactly, precisely, what problem do you think you're trying to solve for the world? So I created a problem statement. One of the things that I discovered after I left the corporate world was that not a lot of managers know how to manage creative teams effectively, especially if they're coming from product management, engineering fields. So it occurred to me that I know a lot about this. I've managed creative teams for a long time. Maybe I should put my focus there in helping new managers understand how to manage creative teams effectively. And I started a blog about this and so on. So that was my initial problem statement. Then I moved to lesson 3, phase 3 of this whole thing, and asking who has the problem. Here's where you create Proto Personas. You create several of these typically. And then you try to home in on one. So I looked at people who might be subscribers to what I'm offering, as well as who might be able to purchase admission to one of my workshops when I start those in the fall. And I discovered that my initial problem statement focusing on new managers of creative teams probably wasn't going to fit the monetization category. I don't think people are going to be willing to come to a leadership course specifically for creative teams. So I kind of pivoted a little bit here, and I moved more towards doing the workshops that communicate this new process that I've come up with on how to design products, to make them simpler, to make the technology work effectively for human beings. So then I moved on to lesson 4, created a hypothesis around this, believing that if I created a 2-day workshop provided mainly to UX and product designers, that it's going to empower participants to try a new approach in their design of products. It needs to fit within the Agile framework, obviously, but there's a lot that I've learned over my 40 years in this field that is not widely known. I thought, this is something I can share. This is something that I can contribute. So then I move on to lesson 5. Part of the things that I think is most impactful about becoming forever employable is that you're constantly running experiments. You're not going out there and saying, this is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to continue to do it regardless of what the world is telling me, whether it works or not. So you start with an experiment. So I started with experiments of creating a newsletter that was talking about the techniques that I've discovered over the course of my career on how to design things effectively. And I put that out there, and I tried to get subscribers for it by advertising it basically on LinkedIn and putting some of my blog posts out on LinkedIn. So that was my initial experiment. Once you've done that, you have to evaluate whether that experiment is working or not. So I looked at this, I looked at my newsletter, and over on the left-hand side, you see this one campaign that I ran recently. And you can see I've only got a 33% open rate for my newsletter. I've only got 12 subscribers. So this isn't taking off the way I'd hoped it would be. And even if people do sign up for the newsletter, they're busy. They got lots of stuff to do. They've got lots of things to read. So yeah, it's not unusual that you subscribe to something, stick it away in your inbox somewhere or in a mail folder, and maybe never come back to it. I also looked at some of the blogs or the articles and blog posts that I put out on LinkedIn, and I saw sometimes I get 500 views, sometimes I get 19 views. So what's going on there? So this is where you have to get in and do some analysis of the effectiveness of your approach. And then once you've done that, you have to decide, am I going to kill it? Is this newsletter really going to work for me? Is this something that's going to take off? Do I need to pivot as I did initially, saying, okay, I'm not going to really focus on new managers of creative teams. I'm going to focus on user experience designers and the managers of user experience designers who really understand the field well, but could use some new techniques. Or do I just persevere and just keep doing what I'm doing? Because I'm seeing some success at it, maybe not what I'd like, but nevertheless, I think I should keep doing it a little bit longer at least to see how it goes. So I continued to persevere, basically. I'm not sure I'm going to continue with the newsletter, but I'm definitely going to continue with my LinkedIn presence. I'm trying to build my platform there. But then the next lesson that I learned was there's a whole lot of tools. It takes a lot of time to be producing content constantly, whether it's on LinkedIn or on your blog or in a newsletter. So you need tools to help automate that and to keep track of what you're doing. So I use the brain. I learned to use that. It's a really effective tool for organizing information, making it easily accessible and findable. I use Wix to create a website. I use Buffer to basically create a queue of posts that I want to put out on LinkedIn and other social media platforms to help automate that and get that more efficient. Continue with LinkedIn. Use contact for newsletter creation. So there's a whole lot of technology that's out there to assist you, but it does take time to master it and figure out how you're going to use it. So then we go into lesson 8. You analyze and you learn. That's why I signed up for the Becoming Forever Employable workshop. I wanted to learn from Jeff. He's done what I hope to do over the next year or 2 or 3. And so understanding his story and his journey to where he is today was very helpful to me, as well as looking at another thought leader in the field, Jared Spool, who has this community that he calls Leaders of Awesomeness. I joined that. Jared is very generous. He's willing to help publish articles from not just from himself, but from people who are members of his community. So that was wonderful. Nielsen Norman Group, of course, they've been around forever and have been leaders in this field. And I actually got to work with Don Norman a little bit. He joined HP briefly before he realized the corporate world was not for him. But anyway, while I was at HP, I was able to communicate a little bit with him. Lesson 9, as long as you're experimenting, you can't fail. This is the most compelling message that I can give you, the thing that has given me the most opportunity to de-stress my life. Okay, when you start a new company or a new venture and you're going to venture off on your own, you know, you're putting yourself out there. Your success is not guaranteed. It can impact you financially. There's a whole lot of stressors. But if you're experimenting, you can't fail because you just try and experiment. You see if it works. If it works, great. You keep doing it. If it doesn't work, you try something else. So as long as your attempts at becoming forever employable is a continuation of experimentation, you'll eventually get where you want to be. And this is one of my favorite quotes from Elizabeth Moss Cantor, saying that, you know, every time you try something, in the middle of that endeavor, it looks like you're failing, but ultimately, you're probably going to succeed. So what's next for me? Like I said, I'm working on a book right now that I want to get out that I call The Design Mind, at least at the moment. It's a working title that's going to basically communicate some of the methodologies that I've developed over the course of my career. I'm going to continue with a blog on my website. And then in the fall, I'm going to be starting a series of workshops here in Colorado. My goal is to have this inspiring place for people to come, not some sterile conference room with no windows, but actually come to a resort in Colorado. And we would all work together to master this approach to user experience design that I've developed. My final lesson, it's never too late to be what you might have been, by Eleanor Roosevelt. You might think I'm at the end of my career. I've been doing this for 40 years, as I said, but I'm not. Throughout my career, while I worked internally in corporations and I've done training workshops and consulting within organizations, it's always been my goal to actually broaden that and go out on my own and do that for the world, for all these other different companies that might benefit from this as well. So it's not too late. I'm continuing this journey, and I hope someday maybe you'll, if you are in the UX field, you might consider coming to one of my workshops or picking up my book.
Sure.
So with that, Jeff, if we want to have some time for some questions, we can do that, or we can move on to the next speaker.
Terrific. Thank you, John. That was excellent. Thanks for sharing your journey. I've got a question for you, folks. If you've got any questions for John, just go ahead and put them in either in the Q&A box would be better for me to just keep track of all the questions. If you have any specific questions for him, I've one question for you, John, which I think is really interesting. In your case, like you said, you've got 40 years of experience doing this kind of stuff. One of the first things that we do in the workshop is try to focus and say, okay, where are you going to plant your flag? 40 years of experience is a lot to narrow down to a flag. How did you do that? How did you think that through? And kind of, how do you feel about that flag 10 weeks later?
Yeah. So especially in my field, in the user experience field, design thinking field, there is just a ton of stuff out there already. One of the things I did for research is I picked up a book on design thinking. There must have been 30 different activities in that book that you could try in order to run a design thinking workshop, okay? So my flag is to find this very focused, very pragmatic, very efficient approach to design. And it's really built around a framework of questions. Yeah. What's the first question you have to ask when you're starting a design project? Once you've answered that, did that generate more questions or did you find an answer to it? And then you move through this cascade of questions until you finally come up with a design that you can prove is simpler than perhaps what's out there on the market today. So it is a broad field, but my particular flag is to find not the current best practices that are being practiced today, but to find a way within 2 days to come in with a problem, leave with a solution that maybe you hadn't been able to come up with before.
Got it. And look, I really like that, right? I mean, look, it's cool that you're focusing on the practical, right? I mean, after 40 years, a lot of folks going to think like, I need to run organizations, and I'm not saying you can't or you shouldn't, but I like the fact that you're taking on you're really refining that and like, let me help you make better designs, right? Which is fantastic. There's one question in the Q&A box, and then we're going to move over to Volker, who's next here, which is, did you have any courses or workshops during your career that played the role that you hope your course will play for others, or did you learn everything on the job?
No, I did conduct my own workshops when I had TCE Labs. It was called Information Engineering course, because one of my theories is that design is all about communication. It's about the exchange of information between technology and human beings, and making sure that the human being is not assigned responsibilities for information that they are not equipped to deal with. Yeah. So I did a lot of workshops during that time. It was the time when you had to send out brochures through the U.S. mail and buy mailing lists from other companies in order to get the word out. But I did successfully conduct workshops there. And then, of course, internally, I did workshops for HP throughout the entire world to all of their sites. Also did workshops throughout the world with Deloitte, as well as with the other companies that I work with. So I've probably done over 100 workshops over the course of my career.
Amazing. John, thank you so much for sharing your story. That was fantastic. All right. Next up, we're going to move over to Volker Tines. Is that the right way to say it, Volker? Am I saying it correctly?
That's the German way to say it. Yeah, that's right.
That's the right way. The German way is the right way.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, in this case, because you're German, right? Yeah. I mean, let's be clear,
that's
right?
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. So I'm gonna pass over to Volker, who comes from a different angle into the Becoming Forever Employable workshop. I'm gonna let him do his presentation. If you've got any questions for him in the meantime, again, please do put them in the Q&A box. And Volker, take it away.
Okay, so let me see if that screen sharing works. And go here. So, can you see my screen?
You're all set. You look great.
Okay, great. So, yeah, Volker Tines, as Jeff pronounced perfectly. Let me first maybe briefly introduce myself. I'm a freelance consultant serving my clients as agile coach, scrum master, or product owner, depending on the different project. I'm 45 years old, married to a wonderful woman, and having 2 lovely children of 4 and 1.5-year-olds. From my professional experience, more than 20 years now, it's mostly about banking, financial services, insurance business, before I became a business consultant in 2013. So I switched sides, so to say, and since then I'm doing projects in agile transformation and software product development projects. So let me now briefly take you on my journey through this Becoming Forever Employable program. How did I get to it? Well, I'm following Jeff's work actually over social media for quite some time. I've read his books, Lean UX or Sense and Respond. I've also taken, let's say, classes with him before. So Becoming Forever Employable was kind of a natural fit to me, because at the age of 45 now, I'm facing the second half maybe of my career. And before actually I joined that program as a freelance consultant, I was actually grabbing kind of any project that I could get with not that much of a focus. Just getting any opportunity or taking any opportunity that I could get. And I was kind of suffering from that imposter syndrome that at least one or two out there might know as well. And actually I had a very weak to actually hardly any online presence, except let's say a LinkedIn profile updated every once in a while. So that was my situation before I joined. And my target when joining this course actually was to future-proof my career, to find what is actually, let's say, the value that I can add to the world. Is there any? Find out what it could be, and for that purpose, let's say that initial exercise that we did, this Ikigai story that John has already introduced to you, was very helpful for me. Although I heard of that before, I never really did it this consistently as we did it in this course, and this really helped me to work out, let's say, an area where I know that I'm good at, things that I love, things that actually the world needs, and things that actually I could probably earn money with. Then from this, sorry, that was my mouse. From that overlap area there in the center of my Ikigai flower, I was planting my initial flag there. I was developing, let's say, my online presence with experiments throughout the course. That's also something that John already mentioned, doing all these experiments. And I received tons of inspirations and very valuable advice from my colleagues in this cohort. In a nutshell, let's say my key takeaways from this course are that actually there is an audience, even for my story. So you just need to go out there and find it. So send your message to the world, and it will resonate with someone. So there are a whole lot of people out there, and it will find its audience. So that is really something that I had to be convinced of. I was not that confident about that, but actually that's something that I learned. The second key takeaway for me is to really ship consistently. In order to make yourself heard out there, you really need to be consistent. Once in, let's say, the things, the messages that you send out, but also in terms of the frequency that you ship your stuff, actually, because there's tons of noise out there, and if you want to get heard, you just need to be there again and again and again. And then, of course, it's not just how do they say that? Just pray and pray. So just send out your stuff and hope that eventually someone will like it. But it's equally important to listen to the feedback that you get. That's what John already elaborated on. And this is actually something that I know from my, let's say, agile software product development career. Of course, when developing a normal product, then we do it the same way. So why don't apply the same techniques when I'm developing myself as a product? So, but that was something that I just had to learn during that course. And from all these learnings, then take ownership of myself as a product and act accordingly. It's all about acting and doing and shipping. So with all this, actually, I feel well prepared for my way ahead, where I will, let's say, keep up that weekly shipping that I started during the course. I will continue with my lightweight experimentation that I did through the course in order to find out whether I'm kind of going into the right direction, see if my stuff resonates with my audience, and then adapt. And of course, I will stay in touch with Jeff and the cohort members in order to get some advice and to just exchange and let them be part of my further journey. So that was in a nutshell, let's say, the journey. I put together some details. So these 20 years of a professional experience that I had in various roles just made me a generalist, taking on just any assignment that I could get. I had no clear idea of what could be my USP, my value that I could provide to the world, how I could actually identify and develop it, and how actually I could make myself, let's say, heard in this world out there with all that noise that you know from your social media feeds. And this Ikigai challenge was kind of a catalyst for all these things then coming. It was really hard for me to learn what I'm actually good at, because I did so many things, as probably many of you, tons of different things, and I did them well, I think. I mean, I was contracted again and again and again, but I would not have considered myself being an expert in any of these topics, or kind of a thought leader or whatever. So that exercise really helped me to nail down these things and to find that little spot in the center of all these dimensions of things I love and good at. What I think that the world needs in terms of services that are required, and what I could actually get paid for. My challenges throughout the weeks, personally, let's say, were to overcome that kind of imposter syndrome, because I was always asking myself, what is it that I'm actually good at? Is there anything actually? And whatever I will post, I'm sure they will just Google the topics and they will see that it's kind of not originally from me. There have been hundreds of other people telling more or less the same. So that was quite a hard challenge for me. And then another one was when creating the content to ship, to beat that perfectionism that is kind of built in myself. Always thinking, oh, it's not ready yet, it's not good enough yet, and how can I further improve it, and continue working on it, and just to get out of that wheel and finally ship it at some time. And another thing was actually to start into that social media content marketing stuff. Actually, that was also something that I was not very much familiar with. As I said, I had that mandatory profile on LinkedIn, but I didn't really maintain it. Neither did I post actually anything in any frequent manner. So it was just there. So if anyone was looking, am I existing on LinkedIn? Yes, I do, but more or less as a zombie. So what helped me most throughout these weeks to overcome my challenges, I very much appreciated that excellent, let's say, balanced combination of inspirational and actionable input on the one hand side, and the exercises that we actually had to do. So put these things into action, be it in pairs during the session, during the weeks, or to do it alone. So that was really to get into that action and not to be left alone with that. That was very, very helpful for me. Also, of course, the experience exchange with the other cohort members to hear their stories, what the problems were that they were facing, how they did overcome them. That was very, very helpful. Not to forget, of course, the one-on-one support that Jeff was offering all the time, and that I was actually enjoying in a private session. What was very valuable for me was the commitment towards the cohort, actually to deliver my tasks consistently, so that I was responsible to them to actually do what I committed to do. If I had just committed that to myself, like maybe in the future, that I'm not sure if I had been that successful in that. And last but not least, there were some very inspiring sessions with special guests that Jeff was inviting to the classes, like Melissa Perry or John Cutler, Sam McAfee, just to mention a few of them. They told us their story, their experience, how they became thought leaders in their field, and that was very, very interesting to learn from them and see from where they started, what they did actually to become successful. Very, very helpful for me. So where I am today, so I have a much better understanding now of what I am good at. So I just did not left it, let's say, to my own assessment, but we actually did a survey throughout the course. I was asking my clients that I worked with during the past years, what did you, let's say, enjoy most in working with me? And I actually received a whole lot of feedback, and I then categorized it and narrowed it down to some areas where I was actually able throughout the past years to really provide some value to them. So now it's not just my own assessment, but I have it kind of validated by the clients, which is very valuable to me, since that is something that I can build on, and that helps me overcome that damn imposter stuff. And then through the approach that Jeff is teaching here, with that problem statement template, I always will, or I will never forget that it's actually a real problem that we kind of need to solve if we want to be successful. So and this template really helps to nail that down, to give an idea of who is your target audience, of what are the real problems that are out there in this world, and how you think that you can help solving these problems. That was also a very very good preparation for the subsequent steps then, and that helps me always going back to that when I'm posting my stuff, looking, am I still, let's say, in line with that? And then if not, then maybe adapt it, but always have in mind to solve a real problem if you want to be successful. And then through surveys or through experiments throughout the course, we also, let's say, approached areas where I could actually get paid for. So find out, okay, what are the services that people would be willing to pay for? Because in the end, we will all have to pay our bills, feed our children, that kind of stuff. So in the end, hopefully we will earn some money with that for fair value. I think that's good. So I feel well prepared now with that for my way ahead. I have my stage set on 4 different online channels now, on LinkedIn, Twitter, Xing, which is a German network, and then my personal website. And with the confidence that I gained from the team, from the coaching of Jeff, that there is an audience actually out there for my story. With the tools and processes that I learned, and with the initial momentum that I gained from these classes, and the help of my friends, I would call them now, from this first cohort, I feel pretty well prepared now to further market my flag. Through experiments, always challenge it and nurture it with shipping my stuff, so that actually then hopefully my next job can find me because I am visible out there. Yeah, and I can do the next steps towards actually becoming forever employable.
Terrific.
So that's it. Thank you for your attention. And
nicely
just
done.
one, if you did not like it, sorry, then it was just not for you.
I liked it, Volker. I liked it. Hey, really quick, because there's two questions for you. I want to get them. I want to get them through them very, very quickly, and then get on to the other two guys in the time we have allotted. So thank you for that. One question for you was about, did you focus specifically on a German or European audience, or did you notice any differences between a German European audience and a decidedly sort of North American audience?
Actually, I was not focusing on a specific region. Let's say I was doing all my shipping just in English, so I was kind of neglecting my mother tongue. And when you go to Xing, that German network, then let's say most of the postings are actually done in German. So my learning would be that if I want to be successful on that platform, then I think I would have to switch to German there. I mean, I'm offering services that I need to provide, I think, personally, progressively online, I think, of course. But given that, I think I will more, let's say, target local audiences.
Interesting.
Although
Good.
I did not do that specifically by what I shipped.
Got it. Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm going to hold the second question because it's a more general question. It's not necessarily specifically for you. So I'm going to hold that until later. Right. So thanks so much, Volker. I'm going to pass the stage now over to TJ C, whose last name I'm not going to try. I tried it once. I got close. And I'm gonna let TJ introduce himself and tell you his story throughout his journey. And then if you've got any questions for him, please do put them in the chat. TJ, take it away.
All right, great. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yep.
All right, and it's Shimoleski, or if you're in Poland, Mielewski. But yeah. So hello, everybody, and like I said, TJ Shimoleski. I'm a product designer by trade with digital design experience of up to 19 years. Also in my 40s and with 3 kids. You know, I've been a fan of Jeff for a long time, starting with Lean UX. And so I naturally read his Forever Employable book, and there was a lot in the recent book that resonated with me. And although I have a lot of experience and success with companies that I've worked for, there are younger, hungrier, more toolsy, and cheaper crowd of designers coming for my job. And up to this point, I hadn't done much in sharing my efforts and learning externally. I mean, I do plenty of that in-house. But there was some resistance to kind of doing that outside of my work. And John kind of hit on this a little bit in his talk. One of the issues is there's a lot of noise, and I just didn't want to add to it. There are a lot of people that talk about what I do and have various positions on it, and it's all covered. I mean, looking at this, you know, how to do design thinking and why it's important, and then, you know, why it doesn't work, and why you need UX design, and UX is dead. And I don't know. I didn't know if it needed my voice out there. But kind of to Jeff's point, we all have a unique perspective, right? And we have different experiences, even if we do the same things in similar fields. And he just suggested planting your flag based off your own uniqueness. And product design is a broad subject. So what is it that I do in product design that makes me successful? And also, what are the things about product design that I enjoy and I want to do every day? And what could I kind of get rid of? And, we, as a cohort, we had these exercises that we've done. You heard Volker talk about the ikigai and trying to find out, what we're good at, what we can make money at, what we love, and what the world needs. And it's really hard to self-examine yourself and kind of say what unique flavor you bring to the world. And so this was a great exercise to kind of tease out and find out what comes in the middle of all that. And I mean, creativity was something I always knew was a part of my thing, but also like I didn't realize how much I liked coaching and helping people kind of realize their capabilities. Um, and just my ultimate love of, people building skills. Now, uh, this is still kind of narrowly focused on my career. So I tried to break out of that a little bit and just kind of, I don't want my identity to be my job. I want my identity to be, what I am in the completeness of myself. And so that kind of brought up an interesting thing that I'm an awesome dad. I have no, you know, I have no ego about that. My creativity doesn't end at the office, right? I spend a lot of my time with my kids, and we do a ton of creative projects together. And that's something maybe I could share. But ultimately, it's not something I could make money at. So I was still kind of focused on this product design thing. And I ended up trying to plant two flags. And, the dad thing I was already doing. And, I don't suspect it would make me forever employable. And the latter was more career minded. And I was inadvertently chasing two rabbits. So I realized after kind of trying to get my process to develop this content and kind of create my own brand, I need to focus and practice getting that stuff down rather than trying to juggle multiple ideas. And then ultimately the product leadership content that I was putting out was causing some tension in my work environment. So I decided to focus and just double down on the creative dad. And this was actually helpful in a few ways. For starters, I'm extremely confident in my parenting, and I love talking about it. So it was easy to produce content on this subject. I had no shortage of it, and there seemed to be less of that out on the web than product design. And also, there's far less friction. No one boos you for being a dad that spends time with their kids. So that's kind of a cool thing to go along with that. And I received excellent feedback from the first few pieces of content I put out. And I set up a quick website with a subscription form, and folks left me their email. So I got to talking to people. Oh, that got squishy. And I reached out to dozens of dads on LinkedIn that liked or commented on my posts. I ended up having great conversations with other dads about their experiences and struggles, and how they like to spend time with their kids. And an interesting side effect was having strangers connect to me that share my same passion for parenting and the struggles of balancing work and what should I be more focused on. How do I balance these things? And some were in different stages of fatherhood with newborns, toddlers, kids of the same age as mine, and teenagers. So it was kind of interesting to get all of those different perspectives. Along with these conversations, I also took a poll and received some interesting feedback. I mean, I'm just creative dad. Like, I just plan to show off creative projects that I do with kids. But a lot more people were asking for work-life balance tips. And there was also, some requests for a dad community. And this threw me off a little bit. I wouldn't consider myself an expert by any stretch on work-life balance. I'm still figuring it out as well. But I do have some tips and tricks that I use that have worked for me. So I tried sharing that. And I definitely had some reservations about creating community. One, it's a lot of work, and sometimes not really fun. It's more focused on moderating trolls and keeping the peace among the community. And I didn't know if I wanted to go all in on that. So I stayed focused on just the creative dad aspect. My ultimate goal was to inspire dads to spend time with their kids over the weekends or whenever they have free time, and give them ideas of crafts and activities. And I thought maybe they would share back, and it would grow over time, and maybe community would grow with that. So to give a little push, I put out a video for an Amazon box challenge. There were where dad would take a box, create something with their kids. This failed miserably. It's kind of unclear what happened, but I did learn a lot from it. And one was that my test may have been too big. For one, it took me a heck of a long time to put this video out. I love the video editing part, so that was cool, but it actually took longer for me to record myself because I don't know, I don't like my own voice, and sometimes I just don't like my own what I'm saying. So it took me a while to edit, and I just couldn't get comfortable being on camera. And then there was other prep stuff that I could have done a lot more efficiently, and I just learned by doing. And if I was my own client, which is funny because I never thought of myself as a brand before, I would have just told myself to do smaller tests. And so with that, my daddy time also became a little bit tainted. Daddy time started equaling work, where, I would be doing stuff with my kids that I normally do. And I'm just like, oh, wow, how could I add this content to the creative dad stuff? And this is definitely something I didn't want. I don't want my time with my kids to be corrupted. So, um, I thought at first that maybe I was going to pivot from this, but now I think I'm going to persevere. And the reason is I still think there's things I could have done a lot better. One, instead of doing these large experiments, I could have done smaller things that didn't interfere so much with my time with my kids. And just, just taking a different approach and smaller steps to kind of get feedback quick and a lot more of it. And then just being able, and also how I plan to produce content. I also need a better process of that. And right now, like for my own job, I time box. So I need to kind of time box this a little bit and have a day where I focus. And so that was kind of my general experience. I also didn't mention the cohort's very supportive. It was great to have them have my back and know that when I'm putting stuff out there and putting myself out there and I'm, my heart is pounding, I have, 4 people who have my back, and that is awesome. And a big benefit to this. So thank you.
Nicely done. Excellent. There is there's a supportive comment in the Q&A from Marjorie. She says, this is such amazing possibilities for different insights on parenting. I can relate to feeling like your time with family is being compromised. You'll figure this out. So, and I agree. And so that's really great to hear. And really nice. And I'm happy to hear that you're considering to think about this. I know that we talked a lot about like how to, because you got such a positive response to this, was there a way to balance this this idea and not make daddy time work related and not lose the special moments there? Like we joked a lot about how like when you used to go see a school play before coronavirus, all the parents are watching the play like this, right? And it's like, are you watching the play, or are you Ridley Scott trying to make a movie, right? So there's one question in here I want to ask you, and then we'll jump over to Travis to wrap up the presentations. It says, how much or what parts of your hesitation about pursuing the creative dad thing do you think will show up in becoming a thought leader in a more professionally focused area? Or is it only because it was being about a dad, which is so personal?
So that's, I don't know if this is going to answer it, but one of the things is my biggest outreach was on LinkedIn. And that's, my professional development area where I make connections. And so that's kind of scary. Like I'm putting my personal stuff on LinkedIn, which a lot of people even think, you shouldn't do that, but I was trying to reach out to professional dads like me to kind of inspire this. So And then on top, kind of think of like a Tim Ferriss quote is like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Somebody's going to look at me putting dad content out there and not hire me. I think that's a good thing. And
Yeah.
like Jeff says, and like Seth Godin says, those people are just not for you. Like that's not your audience. And if someone doesn't want to hire me because I like spending time with my kids, and I prioritize that, then I probably don't want to work for or with them. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, fantastic. It's a filter, right? In many ways, about filtering the opportunities that come towards you. One of the things we talked about a lot was it's great to generate opportunities, but you want opportunities that were actually good for you, right? And so and if that's a filter, awesome, right? Just to know that you're getting support both from Chris in the chat. It says the dad men's support group resonates with him, and Marjorie says Instagram is a really nice spot for family stuff as well. So TJ, thank you very, very much. I'm going to shift over to our final cohort member for presentation this evening, or this whatever time of day it is, or it's evening over here. Travis Scott. Travis, take it away. Is Travis muted? Travis, I think you're muted.
There we go.
All right.
Cool. So my story, let's see, let me get to presentation mode here. And of course, the spinning Mac wheel, there it is. All right, so I'm Travis. I live in Spokane, Washington. A little bit about myself. I'm 45. Don't want to work for someone else the rest of my career. Like I mentioned, I live in Spokane and don't plan to move. If you know anything about Spokane, it is not Seattle. We don't have Microsoft and Amazon and big companies here with lots of opportunities. But I chose lifestyle over that. And I've tried a lot of things. Have a unique and diverse experience, as a result of my 20 plus year career. And if you read Jeff's book, Becoming Forever Employable, he mentioned when he turned 35, he kind of had this feeling of being replaceable. That hit me when I turned 40, on my birthday as well. Just this feeling, and having been in recruitment and hearing hiring managers talk about what they want, cheap is always better for most companies. And as my career progressed, I was not cheap. I was also an individual contributor. And so when that happened, I decided to make a pivot and get some leadership experience. So that's where I'm at now. I'm a director of marketing for a company that's based in Denver. But I know that, like I mentioned, I don't want to work for someone the rest of my career. So what recently changed? I've decided to try some different things, experiment. You've heard the guys talk about doing a lot of experiments. I did a big one last year and wrote a book and published it in December. And it's about recruitment marketing. It takes two areas that I have a lot of experience in. And I was curious. I wanted to learn more about this fairly new discipline and see if there's really any opportunity for me to take my unique experience and make an impact there. So did that. I published it in December, and then this workshop came along, and I figured, okay, it's time to really dive in. Let's test this thing out. And so at that point, I had a choice: seriously explore this career pivot into this new space, maybe try to piggyback off of the book and the time I put into it, or consider my recruiting experience a sunk cost and move on. And I chose to explore it. And so through this workshop, the other folks have talked about kind of the exercises we went through, the Ikigai, discovering the what it is that we want to do, and then using interviews with people, developing personas to figure out who it is that we're for. And as a marketer, those are the two most important things that you need to really figure out. Who's it for and what's it for? And then when you figure that out, then figure out how you're going to reach them. And one of my favorite books by Austin Kleon is Steal Like an Artist. And so one of the things that we did in this workshop was look at posts on social that are really resonating with people, and examine why that is, and see if you can break it down and figure out the formula. And so that's what we did, and what I did. Also did some polls to figure out where should I be putting my content, and not just which social platforms, but what kind of content do people like to use to learn? Is it written content, blogs? Is it videos? What is that? And then, as a marketer, it's also always be testing, test, refine, rinse, repeat. So I did the Ikigai, and really what I determined was what I kind of already knew. I love teaching. I love coaching. I love sharing my knowledge. I love gaining knowledge. I love learning and then turning around and giving it away. So that's in the back of my mind, and still trying to figure out the what really. But then I had to figure out who am I for? And especially since I just kind of came into the scene very, very quickly, published the book in December, and really started to engage in various Facebook groups, on LinkedIn. I had made a lot of great connections through interviews for the book. So I was starting to get into that world again, after being out of kind of recruitment HR space for 6+ years or so. So dove in there, was trying to figure out who am I for, and develop this persona. And I'm sharing my free audience because, as I've learned, and you'll see some of the experiments I did, when you're starting to get into something, it just doesn't happen overnight. You really need to build trust and build your brand, your personal brand, your professional brand. And really give things away, give knowledge, content away for free, not too much, that there's a balance about what you give out for free and what you charge for. But you really have to start to build up that trust before people will then be willing to pay you for what you know. So the free persona is really where I'll focus mostly. Steal Like an Artist, I reviewed several other people's posts that were just really killing it, and then started to play with that a little bit. And what I found out is that the posts that resonated the most on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is where I focus, that's where my audience really is. The things that resonated the most were things that kind of told a story, that people could resonate. It not only told a story, but then gave actionable items and kind of lessons learned from something that you actually did, not just always pushing anecdotes and assertions. So this was one that I put out there a couple weeks ago, and it really took off. Really resonated with people. So I kind of figured that formula out. Finding out where I need to focus my time and what content. And I was pleased to find out that most of my audience prefers blogs and articles. And that's good for me because that's what I enjoy. I love writing. Obviously, I wrote a book, and that's where I would like to focus. If they would have said YouTube, I would have been like, well, yeah, sorry, but I'm probably not going to do that. So I'm glad that this is where it landed. So that was good. And then, like I mentioned, always be testing. And that's just how marketers think. I also have a science background, so I'm maybe a little overboard with always be testing. But that was a big part of the workshop is create experiments, especially lightweight experiments that you can spin up real quickly. They don't cost much. They don't take a lot of time. You can get them out there very fast and learn very fast, and fail very fast, and then learn from that. So one of the things that I did that did work very well is I took my book and I created a PDF version that I offered for free as a lead magnet to try to grow my subscriber list, which started at 0. Actually started at 3 because I used some of my emails to test it. So offered that out, promoted it, gave them the option to purchase my Kindle version for $3, less than coffee at Starbucks. And here's what happened. In a couple of weeks, I had 38 subscribers, and my objective was to have 100 in 10 weeks. So I'm on pace to do that, and things worked really, really well. And then another experiment that I did, when I did the Ikigai, I realized that I really like coaching and teaching. And so I had an objective to try to find 2 people who would be interested in a 9-session complimentary coaching program. And I wanted to try to find them within a month, and actually found them within a week. So that was very successful. I'm kind of just starting with one person and probably 3/4 of the way through with another person. And it's been a great experience. It really confirmed that coaching is something I enjoy, and to see people discover and uncover, peel back the onion of themselves and see what they're truly capable of has been really, really fun. But some things bomb, and this bombed really bad. So because I love teaching, I have wanted to put out a workshop for a while. So I basically took 4 things from my book that I thought were kind of the 4 most important parts of my book, and created a 4-week workshop and put it out there, promoted it. But I had a threshold that, because of the format that I had, I really wanted it to be kind of the ability to break out in small cohorts during a Zoom session. And so I wanted no less than 9 people, so we could have groups of 3, and no more than 15. And so if I didn't get to 9, 8 is kind of a gray area, but if I didn't get 8 or 9, I was going to kill it and just kind of move on. And that's kind of the kill, pivot, persevere part that the other guys have talked about. And this really bombed. It got three signups, 3 applications. 2 of those were me testing, and 1 is a friend. So that bombed. I'm going to kill it. And again, I think it's that part of getting into the area too soon without building up a brand and an audience and trust, and then trying to go right into asking someone to pay $300 for a 4-week workshop, a commitment of time and money. This was too big of an experiment at this point in time. So that bombed. So what ultimately happened? I realized that I love marketing. I love helping people with their careers. I also have kind of it's become a hobby, podcast and a blog called The Winding Road, where I talk about viewing your career through a marketing lens. And that's kind of where I think I'm going to pivot and just continue to focus on that. And actually what's happened through the course of this workshop, I've been focusing on recruitment marketing, but still writing and podcasting and things for The Winding Road. And just in the last week, it seems like I may get my first client for a personal branding project for some leaders at a fairly large company. And they came to me. And so I think that's the key, is once you start to get out there, but I've been doing that for almost 2 years of just writing and blogging and podcasting, and it takes time. And so that was building, I was starting this new experiment, and all of a sudden that started to pay off. And so I've realized recruitment marketing isn't something I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about marketing and teaching, but the recruitment and hiring process is broken. That's why I got out of it. And I'm not the person to fix it. So what's next for me? I'm going to take a break. I'm a little burned out from a lot of things, as like a lot of people are through this pandemic and pushing too hard. I'm going to reflect. I'm going to take TJ's advice and shift my focus to family, and getting prepared to shift back to normal, because that's going to be a shift. I'm going to redo the Ikigai, and actually I'm going to be in another community I'm part of. I'm going to be doing a presentation on that with someone else. And I'm going to revisit the things I've learned here, test out a new path, and write the sequel to my story, which probably, might be the personal branding side of things. So hopefully, I know I went over a little bit. I tried to go as fast as possible there.
Excellent, Travis. Thank you so much for sharing your story. That was fantastic. I know that there's one person with their hand up. It's I'm going to say Daggy. Daggy, can you put your question in the Q&A box, and I'd be happy to ask it to Travis. And as you're telling your story, I did see you, and it's really great to hear you kind of coming back to the tools, Travis, because that's really the purpose of this, right? So when we set out on this journey 10 weeks ago together, we laid out a series of assumptions, including that Ikigai, right? That Ikigai work that we did, that everybody talked about, was a series of assumptions. Like, I think I'm good at this. I know I love this. I think the world needs this. I think I can get paid for this. And as we went through this iterative, test and learn process over the last 10 weeks, some stuff became clear that we were wrong about. Some of those assumptions were wrong. Some stuff we were right about. And it's nice to hear you kind of going back and saying, look, now that I've got that perspective, let me go do that again, and then figure out how to move forward from there. So nicely done there. Excellent. I still didn't get Daggy's question. I feel bad. I see they have their hand up. Let me see if I can. I'm going to allow you to talk. So if you'd like to speak and ask your question now, Daggy, you've got permission to unmute. Okay. All right. Well, listen, folks, thank you so much for sticking with us. I know we went over a little bit. We appreciate you sticking with us a couple extra minutes. This was great, and I hope you got a sense of the work that these folks have done, of their journeys. I hope you learned something, and I hope that it gives you some inspiration about where to go next with this. If you're thinking about working in this particular way, get some inspiration about what works, what doesn't work, and how things are moving forward. As I mentioned at the beginning, we're looking towards starting our second cohort, and that's coming up here in the next month or so. So if you're interested in that, please just check out becomingforeveremployable.com with any questions. Otherwise, you can just email me directly. I put my email address in the chat. It's jeff@gothelf.co. And thanks, folks. Thanks for listening. Hope to see you all again sometime online, and preferably in the real world sometime soon as well. And so with that, thanks very much. And we'll see you all next time. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks, everybody.